already having fun.
Oh,
Yeah. Hey guys, yeah. Rule zero, you recognize the cast. Rolo might be here a bit later. Rich is out. John, I think, is out. We got Sterling, we got John, we got Paul, we got Troy, and it's awesome. And the topic is the Gatekeepers. So I'll give you a quick bit of background, and then I'm going to the background while these guys run their mouths because they're way more entertaining than me. Rolo and Roosh, back before Roosh was the fucking Unabomber, had this great discussion on relationships. You guys know the saying, like, guys or girls are the gatekeepers of sex, guys are the gatekeepers of commitment. Roosh actually pushed back on that, going, "Yeah, I don't think so, because I don't see a lot of 23-year-olds trying to get a guy to settle down with them. So I think they don't even enter their gatekeeper market until they hit their epiphany phase." And then they had the little back and forth. And so I thought, let's get some new blood in here to talk about this one. So the first leading question, I don't know who wants to start with this one, is who actually is in control of commitment, men or women?
I can start if you guys want me to, but go ahead, Troy.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, it's sort of sage dating advice that the woman should be the one that pushes you for commitment first. So in that sense, you are allowing her to be in charge of the commitment, because she's got to come to that decision for herself. You know, there's no point being the simp who's like, "Oh my God, are we serious yet?" And, you know, really pushing it. So there's that side of things. But then, of course, and we talked about this off air, but of course you do have the famous stat that 70% of, is it 70% of divorces, and I think it's similar for relationships as well, are closed, are brought to an end by women. And so in that sense, they do have a large degree of control, it seems. And I think that's largely down to the simping of the guys involved, to be fair.
Well, yeah, so I'm going to try not to make this a 30-minute monologue, actually. So I'm going to try to condense it down to 2 minutes here, right? But so on a genetic level, it's Carl made a really good point on one of these Rule Zeros where he was on, and we're talking about how, you know, eggs are expensive and sperm is cheap, right? That's true, but he made the point that alpha sperm is actually more expensive than most eggs out there, right? And so that, I think, right there kind of illustrates who is going to be the gatekeeper of the relationships. If you're from a genetic imperative, assuming that the guy is, you know, high value, or assuming that the guy is of genetic quality for mating, the guy is going to be the gatekeeper of the commitment, right? Because he's going to have options for mating, and it's up to the girl to secure him and his resources and his protective qualities for her offspring. So from that genetic biological perspective, if the guy is of high mating quality, then yes, the guy is the gatekeeper of the commitment. However, if he's not of high, whoa.
Keep going. I got it.
Feedback. Okay, sorry. If he's not of high mating quality, then that changes that dynamic a bit. So we're assuming that the guy is of high mating quality, right? And so to say that, the reason why we want guys to be the gatekeeper of commitment is because that demonstrates that they're high quality, high value. You have to start behaving like you're high value, right? You know what I mean? Or else women aren't going to perceive you like that. So there's a good book too. It's not a red pill book or anything like that. It's called The Passion Trap by a guy named Dean Dellis, PhD, written in the 80s. He talks about something called the one up, one down. And the person who's most invested in the relationship has the least amount of power, that kind of concept. And, you know, he talks about how that rift will get so great that there ends up being a breakup. It's a good book to look at through a red pill lens. When the guy becomes more invested and less realizing of his genetic quality and value and of his options, he becomes, according to that book, the one down, right? And so he loses that relationship power. He becomes the beta. Her eggs are more expensive. And essentially, she becomes a person who is the gatekeeper of everything. She controls in the relationship. You know what I mean? Because she can then use him for his resources and his pragmatic qualities, and then move on to something different. Now, to Roosh's idea, well, most 23-year-olds aren't trying to get a guy in a commitment. I would say that's not true. That guy was a blue check mark celebrity, that 23-year-old, if she thought she could, would absolutely get that guy in a commitment. The problem is with the global sexual marketplace, she's constantly being signaled that she can do better than what she has. That's the reason. So she's out there basically gambling with her sexual market value, constantly trying to do better with what she has, with an inflated view of her sexual market value and how she is, an inflated view of what she can get, because the global sexual marketplace continues to stimulate this idea through the internet and everything that she is a 10 when maybe she's a 7, right? And she doesn't realize that she's a 7 and declining fast until she's epiphany stage. So yeah, it still applies. It just depends on how alpha or of how what genetic quality she perceives that guy. So if she perceives you of high, this is why genuine desire is always so important. To give a practical application here, genuine desire is so important because you won't have power in the relationship if she doesn't have that genuine desire for you. You can't safeguard the commitment if she is settling with you. You know what I mean? If she's picking you because she sees you of the highest genetic quality she can get, now you have the power balance can be there and you guys can be happy, right? But if she is just choosing you to capitalize resources or monkey branch into something better later or whatever, and these are things she's not going to consciously do, of course. These are just things that happened. Then, you're having a problem. You don't have that power. So genuine desire is a requirement for that power. So you have that gatekeeper, so you can be the gatekeeper of the commitment, right? And I'll shut up now. It's like I just keep going for like an hour.
Is that it depends on the gatekeeper really belongs to who has the highest sexual market value at the time.
Right.
Seems like that's the person really who's the gatekeeper of the relationship. Because if the guy is high market value and he doesn't want a relationship, the girl's going to be around. She'll even share him to be around that guy. But if he's low value or the girl thinks she can do better, like she's out in a second.
Makes sense to me. And I guess, Rolo, to get you caught up, so I was just bringing up that argument you had. You probably don't even remember it. I'm like one of the few people who remembers, hey, remember that shit you said in 2008? But yeah, it was the gatekeepers, the commitment gatekeeper versus the sexual gatekeeper. And I know Roosh did some pushback there. I guess if you guys want to hear more, like, do you remember this one at all? Or is
totally. Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh yeah, you're solid.
Yep.
I'm doing new things. I got a new monitor over here too. Yeah, I of course I remember that.
You never forget an argument with Roosh.
Well, I did. Well, it wasn't so much I didn't really even argue with Roosh. Actually, it was funny. This is one of the rare. I don't say rare occasions. It's one of the occasions that I agreed with Roosh. Is maybe it was when Roosh was starting to get a little bit more, I won't say nihilistic, but a little bit more despondent in the sexual marketplace. Because you can look at some of his old videos where he's talking about how like PUA guys or the game is just like a bunch of dancing monkeys, right? It's just a bunch of guys who are performing. Like women want clowns; they want to be entertained, and it was around that same era that he was saying that we have this idea that women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of commitment, and his argument was that that's not necessarily true. It's true if you're a high value guy. Yes, if you are desirable enough to be the guy that holds a commitment that women want to have, then that could be true. But for the vast majority of guys, being the 80% beta guys, he made the argument that women aren't necessarily looking for that guy as a form of commitment. It's similar to like attention. You'll hear a lot of guys in sort of the MGTOW community talk about how like, well, women they can be any age and it doesn't matter. They're always going to get attention and it's always going to be online, social media kind of stuff where they're going to have beta orbiters forever. Or else they can go to any club and spread their legs for any guy, and then they will be rewarded with sex, and that's what's sort of causing this sexual market inflation, let's just call it. And if we're going to talk about the sexual marketplace as like sort of an economy, it's also subject to things like inflation, deflation, stagnation, all the rest of this other stuff right now. And right now it's sort of like I think a lot of guys interpret the sexual marketplace as a buyer's market only for women. and guys are sort of like offering stuff, and it's not what women want, because women believe that they should have the best of the best, because they've been, like, at least the last 3 generations, maybe 4 generations of women become hubristic, and they become entitled to the guy that they think is the tip of, the tip of the top. Like, if you go watch anything that Kevin Samuels is doing right now, and you look at anything where guys are saying, well, you got to be a high value guy, you got to be a quality man. It's the high value man is, I think, analogous to the quality woman myth right now. So guys got to have, they're trying to get fat stacks and be as ripped as they possibly can and be as high value as they possibly can. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is what's motivating that? Is it because you want to be commitment worthy at some point? Do you want, is that the whole thing? Is like, are you looking for some sort of, I don't want to say a quality woman per se, because a lot of guys are saying, well, there's no quality women whatsoever. But when it comes to commitment, is what you have so valuable that women are willing to compete for that commitment? And that's where Roosh went with the whole commitment thing, was that it's not necessarily the fact that women are the sexual gatekeepers and guys are the commitment gatekeepers. It's what do you have that's worth them, like, putting off their own provisioning or their own investment in their own long-term security. Because right now women have this perception that if they grew up in any kind of westernized culture, that they are entitled to having the beta buck side of hypergamy accounted for or insured in some way. So why would they commit to any guy that is suboptimal? Why would they in any way care about the commitment that you're offering unless she perceives you as being more important, more valuable, having a higher, what I call a sexual SMV ratio? Like, you're 1 point above her, at least perceptually, in sexual market value, and she sees that, and so that sort of like evens things out. Well, when I say stuff like that, or when I do shows about like sexual market value ratios, guys are, the first thing out of guys' mouths is, well, I want a woman who's hot, right? I want a woman who is at least on par with my own sexual market value. What are you saying, Rollo? That I have to go out with a chick who's like not a 9 or a 10? I want to have hot, fun sex with, like everybody else has. When is it my turn, kind of thing? And they don't understand that sexual market value imbalance is all perceptual. It's all just, and where's that woman at that particular time in her life where she's like, if a woman's 23, her SMV perception of her own of herself is going to be different than when she's 33. So when guys are telling me, oh, what I got to do, I got to bump myself down, or I got to just like take what I can get. A lot of guys are already doing that. That's all they do anyways. But I don't think that it's so much the commitment side of things. I think a lot of guys think that once they get to a certain point, that women will finally shape up and they'll finally be, they'll finally be commitment worthy. And it's like, no, they're just at a point in their lives where they need you more than you need them. And that's what Paul was just saying a minute ago. It's the cardinal rule of relationships. The person with the power in any relationship, and it doesn't have to be personal. It can be like your job or your family. The person in that relationship that has the most power is the one who needs the other one the least. And so when women get to that epiphany phase, 29 to 31 years old, that's when their necessity dictates for them what priorities are going to be for who they're going to find acceptable for commitment. So when you see all these guys talking about, well, you need to have a quality woman, or here's a 32-year-old woman and she's living with cats and she's drinking box wine and everything, and haha, we got her. Well, that's not a win for you. That's not a win, dude. Okay, because she's still not acceptable for you. Just because you've swapped, or you think you've swapped places with her in the power dynamic, doesn't mean she's going to have anything to do with you, because she still believes at 32 years old that she's entitled to the best of the best. And if you're not that guy, or at least perceptually not that guy, it doesn't matter what you think when it comes to gatekeepers of sex or commitment. She doesn't. The value that you bring to the table is not what she perceptually thinks she deserves.
Do they do this down in Japan too, John? Or like, well, because I know he always talks about in Japan, the girls have there's a societally, like they lock it down. Hey, just so you know, babe, you're getting a little older in the tooth there.
Well, I mean, in Japan, women still respect their fathers, and
that's a very good point.
They still respect their family, and the thing is, like, the United States, the West, it has become just like it's no longer a country; it's like a business, and like culture. Like in America, they're like teaching the majority of the population, white people, to like hate themselves and to hate their culture, and part of that like makes people not want to reproduce, and they don't feel like they don't have pride in their culture. And the Japanese do, the Chinese do, the Koreans do, and they know that getting married is not about, oh, I'm in love, because you know the Western people are so enamored with this fucking bullshit love concept. Like, oh, I just want to be in love, and a lot of guys who are like, oh, I just want to find a quality woman. What they're really saying is like, I'm insecure and I need a woman to because I'm codependent, right? But in Japan, they just know, and China, Korea, you name it, they know we get married to have children because we have pride in our culture and we want to push our culture forward. And they know, look, if you get older, there's a chance your baby might have like a retarded arm. And like, if you want to have a baby at a young age, and that high quality men like young women. And in America, that's become like blasphemy. And it's like, look at the culture, look what's happening, and you're seeing what the result is. And that's why I left, because that's clown world over there. I'm not dealing with that whatsoever.
Hey, it's been working out well. We can all say that one for sure. Who did I cut off just before that?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here real quick, Ryan.
Yeah, please do.
This idea that women might not perceive a guy's like sexual market value properly, right? I've seen a few guys mention this in the chat. I think you might have mentioned it as well, Ryan. Like how, like, okay, what's sexier, like $500,000 in the bank or $1 million in the bank, right? What's like, she's not like an economist. She can't tell this sort of stuff, right? And even a good example would be like the millionaire next door type. The dude who's got a lot of financial wealth, but he doesn't flash it. He owns like properties and he doesn't put it up on his friggin' Instagram or anything like that, right? These days, especially in the West, a lot of a woman's perceptions of a guy's SMV, like how she dictates whether or not she thinks he is like better than her, like, or worthy, or brings more to the table than her, it comes down to pre-selection. It comes down to like social proof more than actually being of higher value than another guy. And another example someone would have dropped in the chat a minute ago was like the guy who like rents a Lambo and is all flashy on Instagram versus the guy who has like, I don't know, $1 million in his 401k or some shit. Like it's like an Aaron Clary, right? Versus a dude who is running around flashing off a lifestyle. What you could very easily argue that one is inherently higher value than the other, but from a woman's perspective, the dude who's flashing his lifestyle off, socially, his social proof is portraying him to have a far higher SMB than he actually does.
I'm gonna jump in on this here too a little bit. Just want to plug Iron Rule number 1 of Tomasi. Frame is everything. All right, just kind of spin off of Rolo's what he had to say there, because look, it's her perceptions, right? That's the whole thing. That's what Sterling's talking about. We're all talking about this in a little bit different way. Even like John's talking about, he's right. With women in the West not respecting their fathers, that clouds their perceptions going forward on how they see men and how they see a male leader in their life, right? So it has to do with their perception. But as far as actionable advice, what to do about it, how do you have a hot girl if that hot girl has all this attention or whatever? The answer is frame. When you control her perceptions, I say control, it's not really the right word, but influence her perceptions, you have frame with her, she's going to defer to you as seeing you as the best genetic option, regardless of whatever's out there. That's the only explanation I have for girls that I've had who are even just plates, who had opportunities to go with the blue checkmark guy and laughed and giggled, told me the story about how they hit on him and offered to go to their house and stuff and offered them the world and money and all this stuff. It ended up at my place having sex with me, right? I'm not higher value objectively than those guys, like not objectively. We're to put me and that person on the internet or whatever and ask you to take a poll, that person wins. But that girl was in my frame at that time. So her perceptions were that I was of higher genetic value. And that's how you kind of deal with this and the way things are in the marketplace.
Yeah. And that goes, and I want to go back to, understanding like real game and even pimp game. That's when you as a man know how to elicit emotions out of her that no other man can bring out of them. You want to talk about real chick crack? If you can be her emotional drug dealer and you're the only guy who can push those buttons and the only guy that can make her feel XYZ, especially when she goes out and every single dude out there is the same boring, oh, you're so wonderful, oh, you're the best, baby, you're so smart, you're so empowered. They hate that shit. That's why American women are miserable, because literally 95% of all guys in the West are doing that.
And it is really behavioral. It's really, really behavioral. But you get guys just don't believe this, and this is the issue that we have with black pill dudes and all of this, who constantly rail against the kind of stuff that we talk about here, because they just fundamentally don't believe that you can alter or in any way influence your price, if you like, on the sexual market. And of course, we know that you can. There's a dude in the chat, Becoming Spartan. He says, your SMV is determined by women. If the market thinks yours is low, then it's low. What you think is irrelevant. Well, I mean, in a superficial way, maybe, because obviously, if you're Chad, that
I'll address that in a second.
Superficially, they might believe that your market value is higher, but the reality is, a comment like that just betrays this complete lack of awareness of what you can do in terms of your mindset and what you can do in terms of behavior, as these guys have been saying, to bring a woman into your frame. And that's the important thing.
Guys,
I'll have two words to that guy: Iceberg Slim and Charles Manson. Okay, that's two words. If you've seen what Iceberg Slim looks like, all right, he's not.
He's famous.
He's not what you would think. You know what I mean? As being a guy who would have girls all over him and whatnot. Take a look at Charles Manson. What was so disturbing about that guy to the blue pill world is that he had these girls that, for their day and time, although they were kind of dirty hippie girls, whatever, but for the time frame and the style and their day, some of those girls were considered very attractive by a lot of guys, and they were completely in that man's frame. That man was 5'3", really weird, okay, really awkward, and not someone you would think is high SMV by those standards, but he had frame with those girls. Now, I know somebody will say, well, these girls are just, crazy and broken or whatever, and that's why.
Qualify it.
No, that they had all different backgrounds and all different things. And there may have been something inside those girls that would make them go as far as being with the Charles Manson versus another, but we're talking Charles Manson. You don't have to be him, right? I mean, there's a normal, healthy, mentally healthy girl will go with a guy if he has frame, and that's the bottom line. She might not murder someone for him, like in those cases, but I mean, she'll go with him. It's controlling perceptions. When you show up, and this is why narcissists unfortunately get people to follow them, right? Because they show up and they believe and they present that they're more than they are actually, and then people will believe it. And they'll go with it. And you'll see that happen, that dynamic. And you ask yourself, why do these people believe this person? Because that person is so confident and convinced of their own inflated view of themselves that other people believe it. I'm not saying you
want to believe that.
Nice. I'm not saying you inflate your view of yourself or whatever. Keep your S&V high. You want to be as close to objective reality as you can. But the frame you present with the girl you're dealing with, you create that bubble where it's us against the world.
Although inflating your sense of yourself does help as well. It's that irrational self-confidence.
Yeah, sure. If you have to. Right. Absolutely.
She doesn't know you're useless until you tell her.
Ryan, I want to double down on something real quick. So it's arguable. It's pretty, like, we're all objective men here, and it's pretty clear that John Fitch has the best body out of all of us, right? But I'm going to read a text message that I have here, and it says, "I love you hugging me. I love your body. I feel calm and secure when you're hugging me. I love you, Jonathan." Right?
When did Brian send you that?
I sent that yesterday into your Twitter.
What I'm trying to make, though, is that, like, the thing is, when you are the guy that can elicit those emotions out of the girl, she will put you on that pedestal. You don't have to worry about being on the pedestal. Or worry about her being on the pedestal, by you being in the driver's seat and you knowing how to absolutely pull those emotions out of you, she will slowly but surely compare you to other men. She will hate those other men because they cannot do what you do, and she will begin to lift you up and she'll begin to pedestalize you. That's the
100%.
exact opposite of what women typically do to men. But if you flip the script, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to handle it, and they lose their fucking mind. And all they want is their next fucking emotional hit. That's all they want.
You're cocaine for the broads, Johnny. Cocaine for the broads.
Hey, Ryan, let me jump in here real quick, because I think one of the things that we really have to define in all this is what qualifies as commitment. That's a lot of people want to say, well, commitment. Well, what is fascinating to me is the people who moan the loudest about commitment are the first people who say, never get married. It's a death sentence. You're leading men to the slaughterhouse. It's like, okay, well, what does commitment mean then? If that's not something that is like going to eventually at some point become valuable to women, then what actually is that? And so I wanted to read this little part from, I've got an essay, I have an essay here called The Key Masters. And I need to like throw this out there because this is kind of an interesting question I would love to put to the rest of the guys on the panel here. It says, to comprehend what I'm talking about, we must first agree on the primary definition of commitment. As I understand it, a commitment is a pledge to do something, a proclamation to perform certain actions or inaction within a specific context for the benefit of another, usually in exchange for some other consideration. In the sexual context, women seek commitment, quote unquote, from a man primarily for provisioning and sexual exclusivity. The man commits to the woman that he will abandon his freedom, his mating strategy, and not enter into sexual relations with other women, like till death do us part, right? Forsaking all others. He pledges himself financially and sexually to her exclusively. Realistically, this is a form of commitment, or this form of commitment includes the man abandoning his options. If he becomes sexually involved with another woman, it is widely considered that he has broken his commitment, and he is dishonored by her and society for breaking the commitment. But has he really broken any commitment other than a self-denigrating pledge to forego his freedom and abandon his options? Since obviously the male imperative is polygamy or unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, then isn't the imposition to commit in the first place really a dishonor of his sexuality and a dishonor to him? If so, isn't commitment in this context nothing more than a form of enslavement? That's where a lot of guys come up with the whole thing about, commitment is it always works in not in men's biological or evolutionary best interests. So by saying men are the gatekeepers of commitment, aren't we really saying that men are the gatekeepers of their own enslavement?
Big facts, bro. Like all these guys thinking they want to lock some girl down, you don't realize, like, dude, I don't care how hot the girl is. I don't care how fire the sex is. Eventually, the sex will get stale. Okay, it will. There's you know what the best pussy in the world is? New pussy.
So
and the
bring
guys
new pussy in the bedroom, John. Do it.
right. So these guys that are in the in this community saying, "Oh, I just want one girl. I want to commit to this, and I want commitment." They're saying that like a starving man would be like, "I just want one Ritz cracker." Like Eddie Murphy did a bit on this, right? I just want one Ritz cracker. If I could just get one Ritz cracker, that'll just change my life, and I could just eat these Ritz crackers for the rest of my life. But then at the end of the day, they're going to get sick and tired of these Ritz crackers. Like, I want some Oreos. I want some Wheat Thins. I want some Cheez-Its. I want some white cheddar Cheez-Its. You know what I mean? So there's a variety of things out there, but these guys are thinking so short-sightedly. Men need to stop looking for commitment from women, because the moment you start placing your internal happiness on some external force that you can't control, aka the most uncontrollable thing in the world, women, you're already setting yourself up for extreme long-term failure and emotional unhappiness.
Like what does like?
Well, here, one sec, Roll. Before we let you go, I want to get the super chats out of the way. John, you got to answer this guy's question because it's a good one.
Yeah, he says, MLD, I like the jacket from Mike Ellis, $2.99 super chat. Where did you buy it? I bought it from Zara.
No shit. Look at that. And then we'll pass off to Rolo again from Marcus. Remember, guys, the best seducers were not good looking. Troy is making good videos about art of seduction by Robert Greene. Absolutely, by the way, if you guys haven't checked it. You've been doing that series for a while now.
13 years. And it's still going. No, we're cracking through. We're nearly at the end now, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
Well, my question was this with that whole thing is like, what should commitment be defined as? What is commitment? And what is it that it should in some way give you any kind of leverage in the sexual marketplace as the gatekeeper of commitment? So what is commitment to women right now? And what, like, I think probably a lot of guys look at commitment in the same way we refer to game. Like game, it's like this nebulous like panacea for guys who you just learn game and everything will be fine for you. And I'm not saying it isn't, but a lot of people don't know what the definition of game is. They don't know what the definition of commitment is either. Because it's like, is it marriage? Because if that's the case, most guys like are of the opinion that you're leading guys to the slaughterhouse. You shouldn't be even talking about marriage, particularly in a modern Western sense, because it is an all downside risk for guys. So in that case, if that's the case, then how is commitment in any way sort of an incentive to have what do you want at the end of the day? What do you want with the what? Is it commitment? Okay, what does that look like? So I wanted to ask you guys, what is commitment to you guys?
I'll jump in here. Apologies for not finishing book 4 yet, Rolo, but he has. I'm in it though. I'm in it. I just hired an assistant. I just hired an assistant so I can finish your book, so she can do my admin crap and work the computer for me. But you made an interesting point at some point in the book. I'm just going to paraphrase and f it up if you don't mind. But it's that it used to be like in an old social order that the commitment came before the pair bond. That's my paraphrase, meaning the sexual and the emotional and stuff like that would come after the actual commitment. Like think of arranged marriages, dowry, stuff like that. Well, now we've kind of switched it. And of course it's fully switched where we expect that the pair bond or that emotional connection, that sexual connection, all that stuff is the precursor. The love is a precursor for the commitment. So that's fine. That's just where we're at now. I look at it like, to me, a commitment is a pair bond or emotional bond that you have with this other person. And then you make that's not the commitment yet, though. That's just the pair bond. You make a decision that you're going to fight to continue and keep that pair bond. So the commitment to me, this is the way I define it. It's a conscious decision to propagate and continue that pair bond. Meaning when emotions change and things change a little bit, you don't just wander off and try to find it somewhere else. You have made a decision that this person's a good match for me. I'm going to work through this relationship and whatever that dynamic is in that relationship. For example, you could have a polygamous style, right? You could be monogamous, whatever it might be. But I don't recommend open polyamory, but we've talked about that before here. Whatever you define that commitment as, you're making a decision to fight for that pair bond moving forward. And unless you get to a point where you don't feel it's salvageable, and that's when relationships break up. So
I'll give you the 80 IQ version of that one, Paul. Rolo, you're actually going to love this one. My girl, I was dating her for about a year at the time. The move-in thing was kind of like maybe going to happen, maybe not. Got posted across the country. I told her, I'm moving across the country, you coming? She dropped everything, ditched her career, moved across the country with me. Then we moved across the country. I'm like, I'm leaving the military. And so she ended up getting herself like a nice big corporate job to kind of help things along because it was uncertain when he left the military if I was going to have another job. It all worked out. But every time I made a big decision, not only was she right on board, she had the how can I help attitude. And I know that's what you always say, isn't it, with the commitment, is the ride or die bitch. And basically leaving her entire social network to move the entire other side of the country with me just because I flippantly said, hey, in 2 weeks I'm going to move. You coming?
Right. That's the difference between I want to be married and I want to marry him. And that's what really, I mean, there has to be a genuine desire factor in a long-term commitment with a woman. But I think that the idea of like, women don't really concern themselves with commitment until it gets to a point where they are necessitous of commitment. So a woman who is suddenly a ride or die girl between the ages of 29 and 31 doesn't necessarily mean she was a ride or die girl back when she was 23 years old, because she had options and she had other things that were going on for her right then. So
funny enough, though, to be fair, mine was 23.
Yeah. So well, then good for you, right? Because I mean, because at least you got it at the point where I don't know whether she acknowledged it or she doesn't. I think a lot of women understand that between the ages of say like 21 and 24, somewhere in there, that their options and their agency, their sexual agency, their real ability to do things in life is at its apogee at that point. But once they get to be 29 to 31, or even later than that, they either cling to the idea that they still have options and there are plenty of social conventions that will convince them of such, or else suddenly they become very concerned with men becoming committophobes, right? That's when guys are infantile and they only want hot young chippies, right? They only want, if guys are so intimidated by an older woman or more established woman, or I've never, that's one of the reasons why I think that we have these social conventions that teach women that their sexual peak is like 40. It's somewhere like between maybe 35, I don't know, but like it's like I'm so better and I'm so much more in touch with my body and everything. I was like, no, you are necessitous of a commitment that you either ignored or you weren't able to establish when you were younger, when you had more power. And so therefore you've got to find some sort of social mechanisms to convince guys that you are more valuable than you actually are because you're older, because you're more mature. You've got to find some way to sell yourself as more sexually available or more sexually mature or whatever. It's still based on sex because women understand that that's what guys are primarily after, and particularly the guys who are more established at 34, 35, 36 years old when they should be committing, right? That's when the biological clock starts ticking, right? 29 to 31. Conveniently, that's when the biological, you'll hear women say, my clock's ticking and I really need to have babies soon. Not your babies, just any babies. I need to get married, not to you, but I just need to be married and have some sort of commitment going. And so what happens is you get these social conventions that try to encourage men to believe that they are immature, kidult, Peter Pan boys for not committing to women at that particular time when women's power is on its declination right around 29 to 31, somewhere in there, and men's is on its inclination at that point. So it serves women's interest in a gynocentric social order that men believe that they should be shamed for not being commitment worthy or commitment eligible. Like, remember, eligibility, the most eligible bachelor is the guy who has his stuff, has his shit together, is established, still good looking, has some status, has some money, has some hopefully some fame of some sorts, even in a limited sense, and that's the guy that they want to get with. But what they're doing is if you notice this, and I was going to bring this up as well, is if you notice one of the things that women will do in a social context with men is they will define commitment as it refers to women. Men are not commitment phobes. Men commit to all kinds of things: the military, their family, businesses, school, their ambitions, whatever it is that they want to do in life. Those are commitments. But yet we're going to say a guy's a commitment phobe if he doesn't want to marry that girl when she's at her most necessitous, usually right around 30, 31, 32 years old, somewhere in there. He's a commitment phobe, even though he might have gone through the military, even though he might own his own business, even though he might have, family commitments, even though he might have other commitments that he has. There's plenty of ways to define commitment. That's why I brought that up in the beginning here. What is commitment to you guys? Because it goes far beyond personal relationships with women.
What do you guys think of this one here?
Can I put a TLDR on that real quick? What I've noticed is just this. Women, they only want commitment out of a guy when they see there is some possible benefit for them to siphon off of. That's it.
Yeah.
Is it even such a hard thing to accept either? Like,
It's really not.
a woman wants value.
A lot of these guys are idealists in the chat. A lot of these guys are idealists. Yeah. Like, oh, guys, listen, my girl, her dad voted for Trump. She's a quality woman. Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Is really got one in the bag now.
Is it a man? Like, we always talk about like responsibility versus authority right now. And I know in a trad consensus this is true, but is it a man's responsibility to commit to a woman?
No.
No, of course.
Yeah, we're going to say no, but the rest of like westernized simp society is going to say yes.
Yeah.
And they kind of know it's not true, though. It's just in everybody's interest to pretend it's true. Like a girl that's 32 and single, of course it's your responsibility, because if she says that, she has a more likely chance of somebody going, all right, I'll do it.
Aaron Clary had a phenomenal video the other day, and he said, and it's so true about America. America, sexually speaking, If you're a guy out there and you're struggling with your dating life, you have two choices. You need to become a fuck boy, or you need to buy a Nintendo fucking Switch and become a fucking beta nerd. Like there's no in betweens. You need to be
Become a fuck boy. It's more fun.
yeah.
I know I've
Way
heard
more
good things about the Switch though.
It's fantastic. With that, and the thing is this,
Animal Crossing on it, Ryan.
Yeah.
the thing is this, right? Ultimately, that's you. This is the bed feminism has made for women, and none of them are happy. I love watching, the Fresh Fit podcast because I love seeing how one delusional these bitches are, two how unhappy they are, and three how ugly and fat they are, and how entitled they are at the same time. Like you're screwed, lady. You are screwed, and you're not going to get a high value man, and you're going to die alone in a house full of cats, and then the cats are going to eat your dead body because that's what they do.
It's like
And-
Jerry Springer for men.
And quite frankly,
It
they
is.
they deserve it. And it's so funny. They're so out of touch. Their head is so far up their own ass that they don't even know. These girls like this is how dumb they are. And Aaron Clary made this point. Shout out to Aaron.
It's a
But
nine.
they said, I want a guy that makes $100,000 a year, but I'm going to vote Democrat so the government fucking rapes him with taxes and takes the money away from him. They're all idiots. They're all idiots.
All right. So here's a pivot question for you guys. Whoever wants to take this next one. I think it's a pretty good, like I said, fuckboy, Nintendo Switch, get one. Was it always this way and now it's just become more blatant? Or is there some merit to those people that saying that, in the 1950s and post-war America, it was a golden age and men were men and women were women?
The drives were always there. Like the primal drives are the same. It's just that the global marketplace is what changed it. The global
American
marketplace
society-
made things more.
American society and the culture crumbled because people used to be like, you got to get married. Like I was listening to Earl Nightingale the other day, and he was talking about, hey, when you're, if you're listening to this and you're a man who's 25, you're probably married with kids by now, and that,
Whoa.
that's completely changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The culture's eroding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the global sexual marketplace. It puts hypergamy on overdrive, and it gives them an inflated view or idea of their own sexual market value, and it also lies to them. Like the feminist lie is that women have time. They don't. A woman really does need to start as early as she starts becoming interested in boys and developing communication and relationship skills, because relationships are difficult. And if she wants to nail a high value guy down and have him give his commitment away to her when she's 29, 30, right? Before she completely hits the wall, she better have those skills tightened up and on par, or it's just not going to happen for her. I mean, we lose out as men when we're younger and when we're beta, but we have all the power and we hold all the cards when we're older, and we can always, as in your 40s or even in your 50s, until your balls fall off and you have no more testosterone and you're 80 years old, right? Like you can always trade up for a younger model. And so she better bring skills to the table and value to the table outside of her holes, okay, if that guy's going to want to keep her around. These girls are lied to. They think that their value is inherent and intrinsic because that's the message they get when they're hot and 21, not realizing that if they don't spend those years working on relationship skills instead of hoe skills, it ain't going to work out for them when they're older. They'll get married to some simp and they won't be happy with them.
That's why I say American chicks.
A lot of princesses out
Chick-
there.
Oh, go ahead, John.
A lot of princesses out there. I meet them all the time. I'll hit that 27 to 32 age group. There's a lot of princesses that are starting to hit that wall, and they cannot believe somebody's pushing back, or like the whole flaking thing and like holding them to the flake stuff. They're clueless. They have no idea.
No, the thing is this: American chicks, they don't know how to be feminine. They don't know
No, this is true.
They don't know how to be women, and femininity is the snare to catch high value men. And American chicks are manly as shit. To top it off, right? They don't even know simple things like, oh, guess what, guys, we don't like chicks that have been ran through. Okay.
Right.
And the thing, and to double it off, like what Paul said is 1,000% true. Guess what? all you ladies, you've flooded the market with pussy. We don't need to commit. The high value guys, there's a new dummy ready to be some empowered women on and empower herself on her fucking knees in my bedroom. Okay. And they're everywhere and they're not going away. So the incentive for guys like us, top level guys, to commit is literally non-existent. Like you really have to hit some kind of emotional chord within us to keep you around. And you're lucky to get that alone.
That's why I laughed. Did you see my Insta? I don't know if you guys are on my Instagram, but did you see the one where I put my chick with that power hammer and she was tiling the floors during one of our Rule Zero podcasts? She asked that, "Why do I love you?" And I'm like, "It's because you can drywall and I can't." Say what you will about sexuality and whatever. A chick that's functionally useful. Oh my god! But anyways, Rolo, you had a question though. You were going to ask John. I'm curious.
Well, I was going to ask John because John, you're the only one that's been, as far as I know, you're the only one that's been divorced and you're back in the sexual marketplace. And I'm sorry, remind me again, John. How old are you now?
43 now.
43. So, and you're dating women between the ages of what? Like, what's your demographic that you're good with?
22 to 32.
Okay.
Pretty regular. High 20s.
So which of those, like if you broke those down into like age demographics, like which of those are more concerned with commitment and which of those are not concerned with commitment whatsoever?
Yeah, you get a much more commitment vibe from the 27 or 32-year-olds for sure. They're talking about babies and stuff like that automatically. But what I've noticed also is that there's a demographic of the young 20s-year-olds that are they're kind of anti-woke, and that's encouraged, right? And they're actually, one was, I think, was like, she was like too Christian. She was like kind of getting turned white pill. She was wearing the Trump hat and stuff, and it was too much. She was trying to get me to go to church and stuff, and that wasn't happening. And then but you have the other one who's
sorry,
more like into philosophy and stoicism and stuff like that. So like, it's different. There's different groups there, but you also care.
Would you say that the fact that you are like, so you're 3 years old and you're an established guy, right? I mean, you've been in MMA fighting, you got your
selection is high. Yeah.
Do you think that your commitment worthiness is sort of something that you can leverage in like dating these chicks? I mean, is that what keeps the fish on the hook?
My attention is enough for me to leverage right now. Because I have, I'm pretty forward with the fact that I have split custody. So 50% of my time is being dad anyways. Then I have the rest of the time is I have to make money, and then I get a little bit of time to date. So like, if I choose to spend time with you, like, you're lucky. I make sure they know they're lucky, and just my attention right now for most is enough to get them to be pretty obedient.
And Rolo, John has a blue check mark on Instagram, which is huge.
Yep.
The beast.
Huge.
Everything.
How many girls you take into your yacht to take a shit on their chest, John? That's what we really want to know.
How many Cleveland Steamers do you have in your notch count?
You notice he didn't just say 0 right away. I'm just saying.
Right. For clout, you need to advertise that. I'm on my 32nd Cleveland Steamer this week.
In a week. That's going in a bit.
I'm curious.
Right.
When
John,
I have
John, I think your microphone's not connected, buddy. I think you're picking up on your PC microphone.
I want to jump in. I'm sorry.
Let me just finish this thought real quick. The reason I'm curious about this is because I'll talk to guys who are like 45, 55 years old, and they're divorced. That's usually the prime demographic for guys to get divorced. And they'll say, I'm getting back into the sexual marketplace, and I can only find like two kinds of chicks, right? I can only find the girls who don't want to have anything to do with me because I'm too old for them, because they want to turn cougar all of a sudden because they're fresh out of their marriages and they want to go back and have a fuckboy kind of thing going on. But then there's the women who won't have anything to do with them unless that looks like they could be a sort of a long-term partner, a long-term commitment potential with a guy who's 45 or 55 years old. And so a lot of guys get into this idea that their commitment worthiness ends up being something of an attractant. Like, it's what makes them more attractive, or they can leverage that in their game rather than looks, money, status, all that other good stuff that we always talk about. They look at their idea that, well, I'm a proven commodity. I was married before. I've got 3 kids, and now I'm single, blah, blah, blah. Things didn't work out, but I'm a really great guy, and I'm on my game. I'm dutiful, and I pay my child support, whatever, that kind of stuff. And that commitment worthiness, that parental investment worthiness, I think, is what these guys, and maybe mistakenly so, believe that should be something that is attractive about them, when in fact all that woman is really looking for is just the next best thing, right? Just whatever will keep her secure in the into her older age.
There's an element of
menopause years, I should say.
There's an element of having your shit together, though, that having kids and paying your shit and having that stuff is an attraction, I think.
It's parental investment. It certainly hits on the beta buck side of hypergamy. Do you, John, let me ask you this. I don't think I've ever asked you this before. Do you think that because you have 2 boys and because you're technically, I guess you're sharing custody, so you're a single parent, do you think that is more attractive for a guy to have 2 kids than it is for a woman to have be a single mommy?
I think that it's different. I get stood up just as often as I swipe, left with single moms. 'Cause I've had people, they find out I have kids later and they don't want to talk or whatever, especially the ones that are in the younger 20s. So I mean, I wouldn't say that there's any bonus or benefit to having kids. I think I have the ring tattoo on my finger. I think when I'm out, that's a definite, that helps. Girls see that in the cauliflower ear, and then that I get a lot of interesting signals from that.
Yeah, John, I'll tell you this: when you're when me and Mac, the day gamer, we talk about this often. In Japan, when we walk around, it's one thing, get some looks, but when we walk around holding the hand of a Japanese girl, doesn't matter who the girl is, okay, we get double the looks and double the interest.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's across the board.
Pre-selection
is a real thing.
It's wild.
Well, I want to jump in a little bit. So I am not a blue checkmark guy on Instagram at all. All right. I'm not cool at all. But I'm experiencing the same thing that John Fitch is experiencing. And I did actually, people don't know this, I did actually was married at one time too. And so went through that, became single again, hit the marketplace. And I get whatever I want in the marketplace. And I'm not this famous person. I'm in the top 10% of earners now, okay, between real estate and everything else I do too. But that's real new. That's real recent. You know what I'm saying? And so it's all about, I mean, John has said this a few times. It's all about the emotions you're invoking. It's like, imagine that you're creating a utopia that's in your bubble, that's away and separate from all the other BS that's out there. I mean, I think that people forget that when girls are out there chasing clout and chasing, the dream, they're erratic and they're miserable and they're unstable. They want a sense of stability and security from an alpha male. You create that in your bubble. You don't have to have, $10 million in the bank account and a McLaren, right? And a huge amount of clout. You don't. You just have to be able to have enough resources to be able to create that bubble for yourself. And then when people come into that bubble with you, they find that they're in a complete utopia where their emotions are stimulated and high. And they believe that they're in a different place than the rest of the world, and they value it more than anywhere else. I had 2 girls over last night. I mean, they're there and they feel like they feel so happy to be there compared to everywhere else. And I think a big part of that frame too that you hold with women, where a lot of guys lose this, is they don't realize the value that they're bringing to them by creating that. I mean, I don't mean to say that you're saving them like a White Knight or Captain Sabo, but essentially in some ways, when you allow them into your life, when you allow a commitment, I mean, if you want to be committed, guys that are, if you want to be committed and do the monogamy thing, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. If that's what you want, do it. But you got to understand, though, the value you're bringing to the table if you're going to offer that to her. That's huge. And if you understand that value and you don't take that for granted, you're not going to let her take that for granted. You know what I mean? And a lot of you guys come into it where you allow yourself to be taken for granted. Oh, I'm glad she picked me. She's my better half, kind of bullshit. You know what I mean? And that's why you lose in your relationship and you find yourself divorced 7 years later, getting zeroed out. Yeah.
But the other thing is as well, you've got to think, and Rollo alluded to this before, you've got to think carefully about what you actually want, because a lot of dudes, you'll get guys in the chat and they're just sort of like, oh, well, when does having 2 girls over last night get old and boring, and when do you want something that's like more meaningful? Never. Yeah. when don't you want something that's more meaningful? Don't you want something that's got more substance to it? It's like, but you're saying that because it sounds good. You're saying that it's received thinking. You're not even speaking. You're just regurgitating social conditioning. You're saying stuff that is going to make you think is going to make you look good to other people in the chat or on Twitter or whatever.
What did you say? Troy, I would go further and say that it's just coming from a place of scarcity and loneliness.
True.
Look at all the guys. John Fitch gets tons of pussy. Troy, tons of pussy. Paul, tons of pussy. Myself, tons of pussy. You don't see us like, I'm just looking for a quality woman who will commit to me, and I can get in a canoe and fucking paddle off into the sunset on Lake Tahoe.
I'm looking for a low quality woman.
She can't fit in the canoe.
Well, and here, branch onto this stuff more specific then. So we're obviously, like, we all kind of get it instinctively or intuitively or through practice. When you say a high value male, when you say a hypergamous best option, we all kind of know. But there's a lot of guys in chat who may not know specifically. They may still think it means, oh, like I said, what Sterling was seeing what I said before. Do you have $1 million or $500,000 in the bank? Which one's alpha? Specifically, though, if guys are here and they aren't getting the stuff that Paul's talking about, that she sees in and wants to invest, if they're not seeing that ride or die bitch that Rollo's talking about, if the John's thing about, like, don't bring this shit to my doorstep, if she's bringing shit to your doorstep, what are the actionable qualities? And which ones do people see now that aren't real? Like the I have a good job is a good example of one that's not real, but everybody thinks it is.
Can I want to touch back on what I think, what Paul was saying. And, this is a little bit more deeper, but the thing is this, when you get into a relationship or commitment with anything with these chicks, right, you have to understand from the very beginning, the relationship is pimp or be pimp. And if you don't think she's pimping you, you're being pimped, okay? It's lead or be led, all right? And then when a woman is the one leading the relationship, believe you me, she is leading you to the door to find a guy like me who's going to have her do shit. You have to be evangelical with your self-belief. And you have to be evangelical about your cause and be like, listen, I'm doing this. This is my life. I'm building something, which all goes back to the mental point of origin. Listen, I don't just keep chicks around who just for sex. Like, you have to be able to at least cook, clean, and massage, and be willing and ready to wash me in the bathtub. If you don't do that, if you don't bring that to the table, I mean, I'm really don't have a lot of long-term interest in you. And to top it off, when you give these girls purpose, because these bitches are lost now more than ever. These chicks are lost, bro. They don't know if they're coming or going. And American chicks, especially, this is American chicks' game. This is their game, right? Latina chicks, they cook for you. They call you papi. They tell you so sexy. I scratch your head. Massage you. I love you, right? They do all that shit. American chicks give you pussy, take pussy away. Give you pussy, take pussy away. Give pussy to someone else to make you jealous, right? That's their game. And ultimately, it's a destructive game for them because they're eroding at their value, which is just giving their body away, right? And that's why when you're a guy like, me and Paul, I know Paul's a pimp too. He's a fucking white dude raised in Detroit, So like, he's got that pimp game in his blood. When you give a woman purpose and you give them guidance and then you remove it, dude, some of these chicks have to go to like psychological counseling. They lose their identity. They lose their purpose and they don't know what to do with themselves. Sometimes, how I punish my chicks? Dead silence. Drop off the map. Yep. Disappear. They lose it. They amplify their stalking. They're, what did I do wrong? I'm so sorry. I'll come over fucking 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll bring you a Slurpee from 7-Eleven. I used to test my girls. I said, all right, you need to bring me a #1 from Chick-fil-A, okay, large, and you have to bring me a drink, which is half Diet Lemonade and half Hawaiian Punch. And if that shit was wrong, I'd be like, I let them know you did not accomplish your goal. You have failed your mission. You have failed the supreme leader of the Hot Dude Army. How dare you? I banish you to the land of
Yeah,
Vader.
them commit suicide in front of you. Isn't that what they do over there when they fail? Just
Good old seppuku, sexual seppuku.
little seppuku.
Hey, I got a quote for you. Did you get that? Let me throw this. Can I throw this one out here, Brian? Just real quick.
Please do.
This is because you guys were mentioning Roosh earlier on, and this was like, this was when Roosh was actually lucid. So this should tell you how long ago this was. This is from a post I have called the Keymasters. I put it in the chat earlier on. I'll put it back up again if you really want to read it. This was the Roosh quote, and I think this is the one that you were referring to earlier, Ryan. So this is what he said. He says, a popular manosphere saying is that women are the gatekeepers to sex and men are the gatekeepers to commitment. I wish this was an absolute truth, but it's not. As a collective, women are often the gatekeepers of both sex and commitment. Most men reading this right now can surely attest to their failed attempts to secure commitment from women they slept with. And if you poll the entire population of men, you may find that they are the initiators of monogamous relationships more often than women are. It only makes sense for this to be true. It is way more damaging for a man to have his woman sleep with another man and get cuckolded than the other way around. The 0.5% of the population who are skilled players and have more say with commitment don't put a dent into this common reality. As a sex, men have very little say in determining the relationship dynamic. It would be a nice fantasy for us men to believe that we have a say in relationship and sex. It'd be nice to think that our alpha behavior and our game determines how a relationship can proceed, but often it doesn't. We're just giving the girl what she has already decided on. Do you really think that you're selling televisions to a customer who came into the store with the intent to buy a bicycle? The woman who falls in love with us wanted to fall in love with us. The girl who had fun with us wanted to just have fun with us, and so on. And even when a girl wants a bicycle, she still wants a certain kind of bicycle. This is why game is a numbers game, because girls are incredibly picky even when they are sexually available. The horniest girl in the club who decided on having sex will still have her pick of the litter and opt for the guy, and opt to get the best that she can get. That's the quote.
There's a lot of truth in that, but you know the big problem with that whole thing is when he says, and I forget the exact wording, but when he says guys will try to gain commitment from the woman. And that's the whole problem with the whole damn thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're a guy, and he sort of, the way he puts it, it's almost as if you've just had sex with her and then you want to stop her from like cuckolding you, going off with some other dudes. But you should not be seeking to lock down her commitment, certainly not at that early stage, and arguably not at all.
Never.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
That's why Roosh was never red pill. He was
exactly
a skilled player at one point, but he was never red pill. And the same way that mystery was never red pill.
So if you're getting into these, you know, you're meeting these different girls, you're dating, you're having sex, and then you're trying to say, okay, well, guys, can we take this? Can we let's make this a bit more serious? Then that is your problem right there. That's a foundational problem, and that's an attitudinal problem. And somebody said in the chat, you know, most guys are blue pill, serial monogamous or whatever. And there's truth in that. But this is something that you can affect. This is something that you can change in your behavior that isn't doing you any good.
It really comes down to knowing what your weapons are, right? Knowing your value. All right. So like, think about it. Like a girl's value is her sexuality is part of her value. But what happens when she gives away her vagina like it's trash, you know, and she rolls through the marketplace on the carousel, just giving it up to losers? How do we perceive her, right? We perceive her like garbage. It's the same thing when guys who their weapon in their pocket, they don't even realize they're carrying is that commitment and is their investment. And so when they give that investment away like it's garbage, you know, and they chase after a girl like, oh, please let me give you this thing I have, like it's perceived as garbage, and she treats it like trash.
It's too easy to had. It's too. There's no value to something that is easily had. That's from the 48 Laws of Power. I can't remember what.
Well, which car do you treat better, a rental or one you own?
Makes the price go. Scarcity makes the price go up.
Even worse, if it's some loser used it, you know, somebody
Yeah.
with lower value than me.
Yes,
Like,
you guys.
why do I want to mingle, you know, and I don't want to be Eskimo brothers with anybody.
I know. like Paul saying this, you know, like, do you think that women really treat their sexuality cheaply? Because I don't necessarily believe that's true. I think that they still think of it as like a means to an end. Like, I want to have sex with this guy because I want to enjoy myself while I'm at the peak of my agency. But in the end, I think women still understand the transactional value or the exchange value of that pussy when it comes to the guy that they want to lock down. So when we talk about like how women with higher notch counts have a higher incidence of divorce, or we talk about how women with higher notch counts report less marital happiness later on in life or whatever, it's usually because they've had that sex with guys, and amongst the, let's just say, the 50 guys that they've had sex with by the time they get married, amongst that 50, there's probably 3 or 4 that were the alpha guys that she's widowed from, that she's still pining for.
So
that
she knows what she's missing.
So she knows what she's missing. Exactly. And so that's that. I honestly, I think that's where that comes from. But the sex that she had with those guys was not because she's just like, here it goes, boys, everybody have, you know, look, I know all the guys want me, so I'm going to have sex with every guy. Are there women like that? Yeah, I'm sure there are. But I'd say by and large, the women who have those problems later on in life weren't passing it out and weren't handing out sex like M&Ms. They were using it so they could lock down those 3 or 4 guys amongst the 50 or so they thought were high value dudes that they could eventually lock down into they were the guys she wanted to have babies with. They were the guys she wanted to marry, but she was not as valuable to those guys as they were to her. If you catch my meaning. So I don't necessarily think that women just throw it out there, although it seems that way, especially to guys who aren't getting it. And more guys, the 80% beta guys, aren't getting laid. So it seems like these women don't have any respect for themselves, and they probably don't, but they're doing it. They're crazy, but they're crazy like a fox, right? They're doing it with there's still an intent behind all of this.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah,
filter, like men are like, that's why pornography is a big deal for guys. Like, guys can separate the sex act from an emotional investment, whereas for women, can they do that? Yeah, more and more they can. But there's still the guys that they really wanted to lock down, the alpha widows, those guys, the guys that they were alpha widowed from. Those are the guys that they're still pining for later on in life when they had to get with the guy who was the beta in waiting, who's Mr. He'll have to do for right now kind of guy.
Well, yeah, but I think it's a lot of times it's like this. It's like, all right, so you know, Cooper just bought a $315,000 McLaren, right? Now,
Jesus Christ. Fucking guy. COVID's getting everybody a little
I
different,
like to just throw that out there for clout for myself. Him and I are friends. Just saying. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but like so he has this car, right? He knows the value of that car. He treats that car like a $350,000 car. Now, what if he let a crackhead in Detroit borrow the keys? You know what I mean? Like, the crackhead in Detroit might. He might see, right, you know, that this is a valuable car, but he's not going to treat it with that same level of value as somebody who understands the value, right? And I kind of look at that as like, that's how women treat their vaginas. You know, like some of them, they are being selective, you know, they think they are, but they just don't know or understand like their own, what they're doing. They're responding to hindbrain drives and emotions, and they're just doing whatever, you know. I was drunk and I was on vacation. This guy was hot. They don't think that they're devaluing themselves when they're making those decisions. They're just going by the feels. But the problem is just like that crackhead doesn't think about the fact that he's devaluing this car when he borrows it and scrapes it against the curb and does whatever, right? He doesn't think like that because he doesn't care, he doesn't understand. But the reality is he's not treating it like it's valuable. And then after he trashes that vehicle and gets, you know, maybe I'm taking this analogy too far now, but maybe after he trashes the vehicle, like it's not worth anything anymore, right? And that's kind of the way I look at how women are approaching this marketplace. Is they don't understand the value that they have. They're definitely pursuing. They're not like Rollo. I totally agree. They're not just out there like, come on, boys, my vagina's here. I'm at the party. You're like, no, line up.
Sounds like they're playing high risk, high reward.
You know, but they just don't. They're just responding to emotions and drives. And it's all in the moment.
I didn't understand they're like, because women's sexual market value peaks so early in their life.
Yeah.
That I don't think that they have an appreciation for how valuable it is. That's why I say, like, I have the joke, you know, the store's called Forever 21, not Forever 41. And so when women are like, you know, I don't think that a lot of them really realize the power that they, like, people are asking me in the chat, well, what do you tell your daughter? This is exactly what I tell my daughter. I tell her, you know what, you're 22, you're 23, you're 24 years old. You make it happen now. Make it happen now. Use this as much as you possibly. I'm not saying go out and like bang other guy. I'm just saying that understand that the peak of your agency is going to be during this time of your life. Understand that and realize that, because I say 90% of the girls that are your friends right now, or that are, you know, on social media or whatever, they have no clue. And you know what? These are the same girls come on fresh and fit, and they're like, I don't know, I just, you know, like I want a high value guy. Well, what makes you deserving of that high value guy, and what even is a high value guy? Because 90% of them just think that, well, it's all about the bag, it's all about this, it's all about that. They're expressing what they think is high value in a guy from the within the context of being a 19, 20, 21-year-old girl, not a woman who is like 37 years old, who is much more necessitous than they have any clue that they will be later on in life. And so when you got guys who are like talking about, like I was saying before, like, and this is just to sort of tag something onto to what Roosh was saying, is that I think a lot of guys make their commitment worthiness something that's part of their game. And that's very much beta game. It's very much what strategic pluralism theory for guys. It's the mating strategy that the lower 80% of guys will use. Well, I've got a good job. Well, I come from a good family. Well, I've got a college degree. Well, I'm going to make partner in the law firm pretty soon. Well, I've got all this potential and all this other stuff. I may not have the bag right now. I may not drive a McLaren. I might not be 6 feet tall. I might not be, well, you know, all these, the alpha fuck side of everything that you want. But beta bucks, I got it, man. I got it in spades. And they think that any woman that doesn't see the value in that is a low quality woman. And they shouldn't be asking.
I'm going to get these super chats out of the way here, and then we'll get back to you guys. The first one's One Man's Way. What about sex being better with an emotional connection? Here, I'll tell you what makes sex better.
The truth.
You're giving testosterone when you fuck a girl. So she actually gets a testosterone load. It turns out you're giving her a little bit. That's why she starts loving you more. That and the dopamine and the oxytocin. These are your hormones making you feel more in love after you nut. And after she, I don't know, what's the girl version of nutting? Bolting?
That's what I do.
That's all it is. So yeah, the emotional connection doesn't make sex better. Good sex makes sex better and makes emotion. Yeah. You're getting them backwards. Unless you guys got an additional thing to throw on here.
No, it's comfort, familiarity, all that rapport is all anti-seductive. The sex act itself, like, I think what guys really don't understand is, I get this, and probably Ryan, you've probably read this as well, because Athol K used to talk about this all the time, about how sex should be about oxytocin, right? It's all about like the after effects, the after sex, the afterglow, right?
Testosterone and oxy.
Testosterone is the pre-sex thing, and oxytocin is the post-sex thing. And I don't think a lot of guys really realize that all of the emotional connection, all the romance, and all the stuff that women claim is so important, that's all post-orgasm.
Yep.
All of that is post-orgasm.
That's because guys don't realize making a girl orgasm is a beta behavior.
Oxytocin is very important right after you nut. And that emotional connection, it's so much better. Well, you still had to go through, and this is where guys, particularly beta guys, lose the narrative, because they think that they have to be more familiar, they have to be more comfortable, they have to spoon with her on the couch for a little while so that she is comfortable enough to have sex with you. No, sex is not about comfort, it's about urgency. It's about anxiety.
Yeah.
It's about genuine desire. It's about like we're not. What is it? There's a chemistry. We're vibing, right?
Literally a chemistry, though.
Apply all these little woo-woo magical names to it, but it amounts to the same thing. There is an uncertainty, there is an urgency, there is an anxiety that comes. That's what we call it, sexual tension. That's what makes for really good sex. What makes for a good relationship, maybe after that, okay, maybe there's an emotional investment. Okay, fine, I'm willing to listen to that. But that comes from like a female way of interpreting what sex should be.
Well, and John even did this right at the beginning of the show. John, that text you were sending where it was like, I love you a bunch, snuggles, kissy face, whatever. That was post-nut text. That wasn't a text saying, let's hook up tonight. That was a text saying, thanks for last night.
Listen, you got to think about it like this. At the foam party in Cancun, right? That there is no romance.
We've all been there. We're going there.
We've all been there.
Right?
Well, I found the.
We all going in together there, right?
I'm going to try and go quite soon because I found an actual phone party in Cancun. So we've got to do a live stream from there. But there's no romance. There's no romance at that phone party in Cancun. She meets the dude. 10 minutes later, they're banging. It's not about romance, right? I mean, that may come afterwards, whatever down the line. But the sexual act itself is distinct from that. And
it's an emotional. If an emotional connection was so important in sex, then pornography would not be free, ubiquitous 4K streaming, that any 10-year-old boy can get on his smartphone right now. If it was all about emotional connection for good sex, like, again, it's a container word, right, Ryan? I mean, it's like, what is your definition of that? What's the subjective definition? So when I hear guys mouth that, I'm like, okay, that guy is approaching this from what women have told him should be important to him.
Yeah, fill it with feelings, throw it at other people. Hopefully they catch on.
Sex. He's not getting alpha sex.
Yeah.
So I got I did a video a while back. It's something I call the Seduction Quadrant, right? And I kind of looked at Mystery's idea between balancing tension and comfort. I also look at that as a horizontal scale, and then I kind of have something to add to it, which is being sexually open or closed, right? So depending on girl's hormonal cycle, whether she's out in the evening, right, interested in getting laid, or whether she's maybe, stressed out in a different part of her cycle at the grocery store or something, is going to make a difference between her openness or how close she is sexually, right? Now, to open a woman up sexually, to make her go from closed to open, she has to have just enough comfort in order to be able to feel safe and comfortable to open herself up for the sexual experience, right? But the balance between tension and comfort, it's really just enough comfort so that she can be sexually open to you, all right? If too much comfort, and that intensity goes down. So the most intense sexual experiences for her are going to be those that have a lot of tension, where she's very, very open sexually. So whatever the conditions are for that, that's where that formula is going to take place. So, for example, a girl on vacation who knows she's not going to be picked up, she's not going to be judged or ostracized socially, her what we call anti-slut defense comes down, so she can have those experiences. She can be more sexually open and then have very intense experience. So sometimes that can be some good experiences for her, right? So it's a matter of creating that tension and opening up her up sexually. The comfort part is just enough to open her, right? The oxytocin and the bonding chemicals that happen afterwards, the intensity of those chemicals is related to the intensity of the sexual experience. The more intense the orgasms and the sexual experience is, the greater the dump is going to be on those bonding chemicals. Right. And so this is why sex can be really important. Sexual experience can be really important. And I have a contrary argument on the idea that giving her orgasms is beta. Right. Because
saying that is a joke, dude.
Well,
Saying that is a joke. Didn't mean that at all.
There's people who believe that. And I get why they do. Like placating to.
They just say it because they can't do it. That's all.
Yeah. well, no, I want to give a little science behind it, though, because I know that some people actually do believe that or whatever. And so, reading books on how to give a girl orgasms, things like something called elusive orgasm. The guy's talking about absolutely placating to the girl, right? Which is definitely beta characteristics. So I could see why a guy would think oh, I'm here for your pleasure, like all that bull stuff, right? But here's the thing. Let's look at it from a genetic tribal sense. Women, without doing anything different, okay, their average time to orgasm is about 14 minutes. And there's a standard deviation in there. For men, it's about 4 or 5 minutes, right? If he does nothing different. So what this did for women in evolutionary times in polyamorous hunter-gatherer tribes is when they're in the ovulation cycle, they'd have sex with a guy. He would finish in 4 minutes. She wouldn't orgasm yet. Okay. So she would seek more sex out with other men, right? She's still horny. So she's still going after it. Now, the guy that's the most dominant alpha guy, though, so her time to orgasm is going to be a lot shorter potentially to that guy. When she sees you as the alpha dude, it might only take her a minute, really, because of how attracted and how intense that experience is for her. So when a girl has an orgasm, the oxytocin from the orgasm shuttles that guy's sperm into the egg. It acts as a shuttle. And so that they've done, that study and they understand that stuff. So for the guy who causes her to orgasm is the guy who's most likely, because of that shuttling effect, going to get pregnant from her or from him. And so she's wanting that dominant sexual option in polyamorous times, hunter-gatherer tribes, that was fighting itself out in the vagina, right? But her lack of time, the fact that it took her longer, that's what kept her seeking sex out more. So women who are very multi-orgasmic and women who, who took that time to orgasm and would seek out more sex, those are the women that got sexually selected. But they came generally for the guy that they perceived as the highest value. So a girl orgasming on you, with you, all that stuff, is her seeing you as an alpha guy, so it's not necessarily the guy's placating to her vagina or anything.
I've read these studies. Now, granted, these are corollary studies. This is in self-report, right? But like, women are more likely to fake an orgasm with an alpha male than they are with a beta male guy.
Yeah, I wanted to address that one. So that's in the
not worth the act.
Yeah.
Get out, right?
Yeah.
Because if a woman is let's say she's not ovulating and she meets a guy who's a high value guy, hypergamy cannot afford to miss that opportunity of later, when she is ovulating, to have sex with that same guy. So she is more, and this is the theory, is that she's more likely to fake an orgasm with an alpha guy that she has some sort of investment in, that she thinks is going to be a good reproductive partner later, maybe a week later or whatever. So she will fake an orgasm and say, "Oh, you're the best lover in the world," and then so when she comes full circle into her proliferative phase, then they'll have sex again, and just to sort of keep the fish on the hook. In this case, it's the guy, by faking an orgasm with the alpha. And then, of course, what happens is beta male guys go, "Yeah, see, those alpha males can't satisfy a woman." No, you're just not worth it.
It's a pretty good Peterson impression, not going to lie.
Well, that's a great, I wanted to address that real quick because I think that's true, especially in the beginning when they first meet the guy, because back to, I don't know if you caught it when you were off camera, but back to that tension, that's because the tension is so high with that alpha guy that orgasm would be difficult for her. So she fakes it because she wants this guy to come back. She sees his value is so high that she's so nervous that tension is just too high. She doesn't have enough comfort at that point to relax and for that orgasm to happen. So I think that's where that comes from. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop right here quickly. I'll get right back to you guys. This was too important not to steal the show for and take a break. Pepperidge Farms, $25 super chat. I'm reading this out because it's fucking humbling, man. His beta roommate split with his BPD chick and was leaning towards self-deletion. I let him borrow my copy of Your Book Fuck Files, and now he's got his own copy, spinning plates and focusing on leaving his mark in the universe. Dude, like, whatever. Everybody loves bragging about how awesome we are and how great our shit is, but if I had any part in saving this dude's life, then, like, fuck, man. Thanks. Anyways, I'm gonna go off camera because I'm gonna fucking cry now.
Dude, I'll just jump. That's what this is all about, man. Like right now, there's a bunch of negative crap going on the internet in the men's help space. Not on my channel. That's all bull crap. Because at the end of the day, there's guys like this that need real help. Mm-hmm. And if I'm sitting here jerking off and telling everybody how awesome I am because look at my receipts I made up, right? Or or I'm going to try to take this guy down and that guy down and all that crap. Who is that helping? It's not helping anybody. And there's real guys like that we're looking at self-selection or self-deletion who need that help. They need a different voice in that content. That's why I got into this in the first place, with soldiers offing themselves over PTSD issues, but relationships and having a hard time with women were one of them. And I think Rollo too has his own story with that too. So, I mean, there's reasons that we're here, and I think it's really important not to lose sight of that stuff and focus on that and not on the soap opera drama bullshit. Leave that to women. You know,
yeah. Going back to today's subject, are women or men the relationship gatekeepers? The number one thing you guys need to ask yourself is, one, are you consistently getting sex, and or are you getting new sex? And then two, if you are, then ask yourself, are you willing to trade that lifestyle for one vagina that there's a pretty good chance you're going to get tired of? Okay. A lot of you guys have
take half your shit.
Yeah. A lot of you guys have relationships idealized. Okay. The reality is this.
It's really a cult.
It really is. The reality is this. If you were to break out a spreadsheet on everything you bring to the table in the relationship and everything she brings to the table, you're going to outweigh that 90% of the time. Okay, because 9 times out of 10, the chick's gonna want to go with you because you're taller than her, you have more muscles than her, you're stronger than her, you're more committed, you're more charismatic than her, you make more money than her. You have the only thing she really has going for her is potentially her looks, and you're lucky if she hasn't been ran through. But that's about it. And also youth. Okay, and the reason why youth is so important is because youth allows them not to be ran through as well. It just less time of them on the market. Okay. What Rollo was saying is this. This is the tragedy of what's happening in the West. A woman's most valuable time in her sexual marketplace value is ages 18 to 23. This is also the time in her life where she's, quite frankly, the dumbest moron she'll probably
yeah,
the rest
exactly.
And then you're saying, okay, here you go out there and make the best choice you can. And here's what's happening, right? Families are broken in America. Divorce is ripping families apart. And to top it off, America and these jaded single moms are vilifying men, poisoning these women, and they continue the cycle of hurt, brokenness, and whoring. And so, like, what you're seeing right now in the market are guys who take it for what it is, the fuck boys, and the guys who still have an idealized perception of women, which are these beta dudes. And that's what you're having right now. And the thing is, but what these girls, the only thing they really bring to the table in America are looks and their pussy. But guess what? If everybody else is bringing looks and pussy to the table, in America, all you need to do is go to the gym and get jacked and have red pill knowledge. You're going to be literally in the top 20% and have your pick of the litter. It's that simple. So
that's the most emojis I've ever seen for one man, John.
But at the same time, like, why would you get in a relationship? Please tell me. Please type it on the chat. Why would you get in a relationship? Give me an objective analysis as to what benefits. What benefits does it bring to you legally? What benefits does it bring to you sexually? I mean, if you guys know, if you've been in an LTR, you know it's only a matter, like, quarterly your bitch is going to spaz out. It doesn't matter if she's from Japan or China, or Korea, or America.
Wait, quarterly? You mean monthly?
You're married to a Canadian.
Shut up, Brian. He's on a roll.
It's true. There's things to bring to the table. Please, someone tell me.
That's a good. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's a really good example of what I've been talking about recently on my own channel, which is all these guys who want to run women up the flagpole on whatever show. I don't care which show it is. It's like, okay, so what's the goal? Why? Okay, so if they're not commitment worthy, then why are, like, if you're about like marriage, if you think marriage is a bad idea, then why are you even watching the show? Why do you even care? Because if that's like, what's the goal? That's why I'm glad you brought this up today, Ryan, because commitment is sort of that thing. It's like, well, you're not worthy of my commitment. Well, if you're not into marriage or long-term relationships anyways, then who cares?
You
right?
should be happy.
Don't you? I was going to say, don't you want these, now that you know the game and now that you know enough about how to score and how to get with these chicks, who cares? It doesn't matter whether they're quality women or they're not quality women if you're not going to put a ring on it or you don't think that that's even an imperative or your responsibility. That's what I would love to ask these guys. What is the end stage? What is the goal? What makes everything good?
I'll do you guys even one better. Rollo, you're right. John, you're right. Here's the thing. Anybody who answers John's question, giving him the shopping list of what the fuck girl's going to offer, is missing the point. It's not his job to convince you. It's not your job to convince him. There's one chick in front of you. It's her job to convince you to wipe her ass up. And if she can't do it, then there's nothing any of us on this panel are going to say that's going to change your mind. In fact, that's her job anyway. So I'm not about to help get the single moms married up. Save that for your pastor. Save those chicks.
Your best
that's exactly
quote
right.
ever, Ryan, your best quote ever: relationships are a women's job.
Fucking right.
It's true. And that's the thing. And guys,
You said, never chase in a relationship. That's a stupid.
And look, here's the deal, guys.
That's how I got conned into getting married in the first place.
Here's a harsh
Big con.
She moved away and conned me into marrying her. Yeah, I should have just let her go.
Son of a bitch.
But here's the thing. Here's a harsh reality, guys, okay? But if a woman wants to get in a relationship with you, it's because she sees that you bring more value to the relationship than she does, and she wants to siphon that shit off of you. That's a harsh reality that not a lot of people are willing to accept. But that's the foundation of hypergamy right there.
And think about how many guys don't ask for full market value for what she's taken from them too. That's the part that's sad.
But the answer to the question that Rollo's posing about, what do these guys really want? What does success look like? I think, playing devil's advocate, I think a lot of those dudes would sort of say, oh, no, well, back in the 50s when it was all great, of course I would have wanted marriage. Of course I would have wanted blah, blah, blah. But it's impossible now because of the conditions. So now I realize that I can't get that stuff. I think that's kind of how they would answer that. But my point is, okay, but then backwards rationalize. Why do you really want that in the first place? Why did you really want that traditional setup for your life anyway, given that male sexuality is predicated around optimal access to optimal sexuality, right? I always butcher that quote, but you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to take a step back and think, well, hang on a minute, I'm sort of extolling the virtues of marriage, and I'm saying, oh, wouldn't it be better if we were all in the 1950s and everything? But is that what you actually want anyway? Or wouldn't you actually prefer to be a player and to spin that for as long as you can? You know, Troy, you've got to really question your belief systems on it.
Exactly. And Troy, let me throw something else at you. This is an old school debate I used to have back in the day, which is, if you are a guy and you are interested in a relationship, if you're the guy who's like, man, I can't wait to get married, or I want, like, if you're very like relationship minded as a guy today in today's sexual marketplace, that is a cue, right? That is a sign, that is almost a red flag for women, because a guy who wants to be in a relationship or wants to get married is almost automatically seen as being blue pill. Like by women who oh, well, he wants to get in a
predator.
Exactly. And so those guys are only useful as betas in rating. They're only useful when a woman has a use for them, which is usually between 29 and 31 years old. Yeah, and they're willing to, drop their priorities a little bit more so that, okay, well, he's marriage minded. I guess I'll get with this guy. I guess he'll have to do. When a guy says, I'm looking for commitment, I'm looking for a marriage, I'm looking for something, it's the guys who are alpha, the guys who women want to lock down, they're not thinking about that. They know what their value is. They know that their intrinsic value is. They know that they're the prize, and they know that women want to lock them down. So it's the guys whose mating strategy is what I said before, strategic pluralism theory. Guys who are lower on the sexual market value spectrum, they have no other choice but to invest in one woman, because they know that their opportunities for sex and for reproduction and for a relationship are very, very limited by comparison to the guys that they see, the top 20% of guys who are getting laid. And we can see this statistically right now in things like the GSS study, where it's like in 10 years, the incidence of sexlessness of men has just skyrocketed. But for women, it's pretty much been about the same. It may have gone up just a touch, but women are still having sex. And most men between the ages of 18 and 24, 18 and 29 aren't having sex. So we know that hypergamy is in effect here, certainly has been for at least the last 10 years. So guys see that. They've got two choices. They can either become a player or they can invest in one woman. They can put all their eggs or reproductive eggs in one basket. And when a guy signals or he telegraphs the idea that he's looking for marriage, he's looking for a long-term commitment, and that kid is like 25 years old, 23 years old, that just basically says, hey, ladies, I'm a beta. I'll be here when you're 30. Like, consider me when you're 30 and you're all done with all having your fun in the foam cannon party, right? When you're 29 to 31 years old, I'll be waiting for you, because then I'll finally be valuable enough so that I can exchange my commitment for your limited amount of your limited amount of real, genuine desire for me. So when women see that, it becomes sort of this cue that this guy is not the alpha that I would necessarily have chosen when I was 21, 22, 23 years old.
So I want to jump in and kind of jump off of what Troy was saying, because I think it's really good and really important. Guys are not asking themselves the right questions. They're not breaking out of the paradigms that are out there. They're looking for a blueprint or a paradigm that's going to make them, we'll say happy, but that's not even the right word for it. Make them not suffer. Men out there are generally suffering in what they're doing in their marriages or in their incel behavior or even in the dating market or whatever. They're absolutely suffering. And they just want answers on how to stop suffering. And so they're looking towards some sort of paradigm, some sort of formula or blueprint. Well, if it was the 1950s, I could have a Tricon wife, and then that would be me not suffering. Not realizing the amount of suffering that nagging barefoot pregnant woman is bringing that dude every day of his life when he comes home from the coal mines, right? Like it's like like it sounds miserable to me, and so it's you have to ask yourself these questions, right? And you have to, I think, the achieving more of, like, we could say a higher alpha state, I don't know what else to call it, is challenging the paradigms. What is it that I want, and how do I want to design my life? What is the design? Not what everyone else says this should, whether it's be a player or be a married guy or whatever. You decide. I'm not going to decide that for you. You decide what it is, how you want to design your life. You are designing your own life, whether you're a poor designer and don't know how to take objective reality and use that to design it, or whether you're a great designer. You are designing your life. And so people need to ask themselves, how do I really want to design this so I can be there and break out of that paradigm? Last point, to make a really hammer the point home, when I was living out of a rucksack in another country and married unhappily in a blue-pilled situation to a wife at the time who really didn't like me all that much, and I was would come make some money, come home and have the checking account empty. I had no idea what this paradigm would look like to be. I couldn't imagine being where I'm at now. I couldn't imagine the lifestyle I have now. It was unimaginable to me when I was living out of that rucksack. But I had to start challenging the paradigms. And I was suffering just like everybody else, probably in a different way, or at least more so, due to, military service or whatever. So you got to challenge it. You can be and get to a different place, but you have to really challenge that stuff. And that's part of being an apex man and part of achieving that higher alpha state. Not looking to me or anyone else on this panel or anyone else out there to give you the blueprint of what's going to make you not suffer, make you happy. Ask yourself, how do I want to design it? And then, or what do I want it to look like? And then, of course, ask yourself, now, how can I get that? That's where anyone on this panel can help you. We can help you with the how. We can tell you the reality of what things are like and then how to get there, right? But you have to decide what that is for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Some somber thoughts right there. All right, so we'll bring it back. No, it's good. We're like I said before in the private chat with these guys, dudes. Rule 0: you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll shit your pants. I can hit like, subscribe
I
to
already
the
shit my
channel.
pants. Sitting
So
in
we've
my
already
own
gotten
mess.
through a lot of these points. Here's my question then: do exceptions exist? And what do I mean by that? You know, when I've had a few guys who have been cheated on over the years, and they talk about it, and they always, it's never. It's weird. Their primary concern isn't, well, is my kid's mine, or is none of the stuff we talk about. Their concern is, why would she cheat on me with this loser? So are these exceptions to the rule? My thought is, like, personally, I think it's an ego investment. You're calling a guy a loser because he took your wife of 10 years and all he had to do was like run a little bit of game and buy her some boxed wine. But is there some merit to this, that sometimes being the loser, being the low value male will still put just as much effort in? And that you shouldn't even be worried about any of this shit? I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this.
Well, do you mean that not having material sort of success means that you can?
Well, that's just it. I don't even know what it means.
Well, I mean, yeah, very clearly. I'm in two minds about this thing, because like I'm fully on board with the Rich Cooper, chase excellence, etc., etc. And I really believe that that's a great trajectory for guys to be on, without a doubt, because you want to have the best life possible, right? That's what it comes down to. Having said that, can you get laid if you're a loser who's sleeping on a mattress and you've just got a couple of bags worth of stuff? 100% you can. The guys on drugs, the sort of like the drug dealers, whatever. These dudes are absolutely caning it out there, and they are getting success. And so the idea that you have to be this sort of Instagram style, high value man with your Lambo and all the rest of it. I mean, yeah, sure, that's going to appeal to a certain demographic, but it's absolutely not necessary. So yeah, if you want to, you could just drop out. You could be the edgy bad boy type guy, and you would be getting loads of success for sure. But I'm not quite sure that's where you were going, Ryan.
Well, I don't know where I was going. That's the thing. I hear people talk about this all the time, and so when their wife cheats on them, it's always the other guy's a piece of shit. Why would she downgrade? Is the
from that perspective? Sorry, from that perspective, then he might be the loser, because we've got the classic meme, haven't we, of she went and had sex with the pool boy, which to the alpha patriarch. He'd be like, well, hang on a minute. I've got millions of dollars in the bank, and I've got this big house and these cars. And she went and had sex with this dude who's like, 27, and he's got nothing. Why would she do that? What a loser! But of course, it's a different attraction trigger that she's working off.
And that goes back to what Ryan said. It's ego investment. The guy's a loser because you got fucking cucked by that guy, right? But the reality is this: if you want to be a man, let alone a red pill man, you need to take full responsibility for what happens in your life, whether it be, hey, guess what, I didn't vet the girl correctly, or quite frankly, like, I just can't, like, I understand guys who got like married and you got fleeced or whatever and you got red pilled, but like any guy who's just like gets married for like, oh, I wanted to do the right thing and this and that. I only think the reason you should get married, not like involving the government, get a spiritual union or whatever the fuck you got to get. Never involve the government, never sign that piece of paper. The only reason you should do that if you truly want to have children as a man. There's literally no other way to justify it, right? And any of these blue pill justifications, I saw somebody in the chat saying like, what about a connection and this and that? Like, the only connection I care about is connecting my penis into her vagina. And so do the majority of all these other people. These connections and stuff, they're just bullshit things that you feel after sex, and they're tied into a scarcity mindset. A lot of people, they pedestalize mediocre pussy because they have a scarcity mindset. And a big problem with the West is that fat women have caused sexual inflations. That's why these bitches on the Fresh and Fit podcasts, these girls, like, seriously solid 5.5 out of 10. And she thinks she's a 7 because she's comparing herself to the chick who weighs 700 pounds. That's the thing. It's all delusion. And it all goes back to scarcity. Scarcity in their mindset, scarcity in their love for themselves. Like, you don't need a bitch, dude. You really don't. Women, like Ro always says, women are a compliment to your life, okay? You are the ice cream sundae, and a woman is the cherry on top, okay? And let's be honest, we all want some fucking cherries. But you can't be going around with this scarcity mindset thinking like, oh man, like, just this one's a high quality woman, so I better lock her down. I better lock her down. Because if you think about what's happening right now, during the duration of this podcast, 100 million chicks turned 18. Okay? Think about that. You have the problem here.
This show is that good? Jesus.
The problem is these guys, like, you're probably low sexual value. Okay? You're probably a little fat. You're probably a little broke. Probably don't have a lot of game, and you don't have a lot of choices. You see me scrambling around like, guys, I'm just really looking for the one here on Modern Life Simping, and really hope that I can fucking find a quality woman. No, I don't give a shit. They're as replaceable as a fucking slice of pizza in New York. Like, they're easily replaceable. So it comes from a position of weakness and neediness. All the gorilla pimps I know, they're not like, dude, Mac the Day Gamer, one of my most red pill pickup friends I've ever met in my life. This guy doesn't give a fuck about relationships. This guy is like living and breathing, ejaculate and evacuate. And so, like, and he never's like, oh, MLD, can I have a consultation? I've been thinking I want to have some fucking Irish potato farming kids like my family before me and blah, 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 blah. No, he's like, no, I'm going to go run through hoes until the day I fucking die. Not a scarcity mindset.
But it's also the romantic ideal. I think a lot, like the guy who chimed in here and says, "What about an emotional connection with?" I'm okay. That's great. I'm glad you have an emotional connection. But the reason that we prioritize that is because we place emotion above everything else. If it's not emotional, then it's meaningless, right? I'm sure you've heard this a zillion times where guys want to say, well, oh, I wouldn't want to be one of those red pill guys because all they care about is spinning plates. All they care about is picking up girls, right? All they care about is putting their dick in anything with two legs, right? That's all those guys want. They're all
tell us more what we care about.
Meaningless. Yeah, exactly. All about meaningless sex. I'm like, well, okay, define what is meaningful sex, right? The only reason why you have that opinion, first of all, is because you're in a scarcity mindset. First of all, Modern Life Simping. You're in a scarcity mindset, and you also prioritize. And most guys do this. Okay, I'm not like beating anybody up with this. I'm just saying most guys will do this because of the past like 3 or 4 generations. We have been acculturated and conditioned to assume that emotion should precede reason, that emotion should and where does that emotion come from? It comes from a female mindset. So what serves the feminine imperative? What is female correct? Oh, an emotional connection, meaningful sex should. Clearly we can see on any episode of like Fresh and Fit podcast that meaningful sex is probably pretty low on the list for a lot of these girls. Okay. So nobody's saying, well, you're having all this meaningless sex. Nobody's going to hold a woman to that same standard, but we'll hold a guy to that standard. We'll say it's your responsibility to have meaningful sex. First of all, what is meaningful sex? Well, it's whatever serves a woman's best interest when she needs it the most. That's when. And so when we prioritize emotion, when we prioritize this idea that you've got to have some sort of like emotional connection or spiritual connection or this kind of connection, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying the reason why you put that first in your mind is because you've been conditioned by a female-centric society to make you think that should be your number one priority. Not only that, it's your masculine responsibility to do that. So women will take that sense of honor, like that innate, like for amongst men, respectability is key. We have to merit respect. Women don't have to merit respect. And the only thing that makes a man respectable is his ability, is how manipulatable he is according to that honor and that respect. And women are just they're perfect at manipulating that. They're perfect at leveraging that for themselves when they need it the most. So suddenly meaningless sex isn't all that big a deal when she's 21, but now meaningful sex is something that she really needs at 32.
And I mean, it's all pretty lies, isn't it? Because what does meaningful really mean in the context of having sex with somebody? I mean, it's kind of nonsensical, and people should realize that. Really, I mean, that's not to say that a connection and so on doesn't exist as you get into relationships and stuff like that. Yeah, sure. We've acknowledged this before. Actually, I've spoken to John about this. There are certain girls out there with whom and they tend to be quite few and far between. But there are certain girls with whom you just develop some more of a connection. There's something a bit more about her. It's not just about sex. So yeah, for sure that exists. But I think that a lot of these guys are just coming at this with a very unexamined perspective. You know, they're saying stuff that they've heard before and they think is right. Oh, I want something more meaningful than just spinning plates. I want something with substance. Well, but take a step back and really think about it. What does any of that actually mean? And is that what you really want anyway? Or do you just want to be Mac the Day Gamer and, you know, have a great time until you drop dead?
Get a dog, guys.
Listen, meaningless sex. There's only one type of meaningless sex, and that's when you don't bust the nut. That's the only meaningless sex. For me, if I'm having sex and I don't come, I'm like, why the fuck did we even do this? Why are you even here? Just to suffer? Like, I don't understand. That's the only meaningless sex there is out there. Anything
the Sisyphean task, keep rolling that dick up the hill, just have it fall back down.
Every time I hear that sound drop, like, oh, she's for the streets, right? Every time I hear that, I go, why is that? Who cares? Why is that's only the only reason that's funny, or the only reason that's even a priority, or that we laugh at that, is because you're approaching that woman like, what does she merit to you? Oh, she's for the streets. Okay, well, the only reason that's even funny is because you're still in the mindset that eventually you're going to marry a girl, any girl, whose quality measures up to your expectations. You're the prize, right? So your commitment worthy. Well, if she's for the streets, then I don't want to have anything to do with her. Okay, well, that also presupposes that you want to get into a long-term relationship at some point. You want to get into an emotional commitment. You want to get married at some point. So if marriage isn't the goal, who cares if she's for the streets?
Are you saying this is all a convoluted coping strategy?
Box wine. No one cares unless your underlying goal is to find a woman who's worthy of putting the ring on the finger.
Are you saying it's like when a guy gets shot down at the bar and he says she must be a lesbian? Is that what you're telling me? That guys may be doing this to feel better about their failure?
So here's the thing on the emotional connection, right? Guys don't ask themselves what it actually it is on a biological level. Now, I'm not trying to discount it or downgrade wanting that. I'm not actually going to do that right now. But let's look at what it actually is. You're ensuring your biological imperative. That's why you're seeking an emotional connection. Because what does that mean? An emotional connection happens because she has genuine desire for you and a emotional and sexual dependency on you, which does what? Gives you frequent access to sex and secures the birth of your own children rather than being cucked by someone else, right? And so that's why men have a drive to seek that. And part of the emotional connection is also wanting to take care of the baby maker. Why is that a drive? Because guys who took care of the baby maker, whether it's an alpha man with multiple women and concubines with multiple kids with different women, or whether it was someone with less of that, right? The men who took care of the baby maker with the resources and protection had babies that survived, all right? And so that's what this emotional connection is on a biological level. It's you securing your biological imperative. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting that, because if a girl has genuine desire for you, and is emotionally and sexually reliant on you and wants you above and beyond everybody else, you're going to have a better relationship with that person, whether it's a casual one with multiple women who feel that way about you, or whether it's, you know, the classical marriage situation or whatever. But without that emotional connection, meaning the connection is really her dependency emotionally on you. That's what that connection is when you really break it down and think about it. And if you're a highly desirable man with a lot of options, okay, a lot of sexual options, there's going to be a lot of women who are going to feel that way about you. And you'll have a lot of emotional connections, you know. Guys who are focused on emotional connection are usually not seeing or at a point where they believe that they could be valued to a woman on a sexual level. You know what I mean? And they're not facing that stuff.
Well, let's leave it on that top end. Paul, lead us out. You guys know you're on my channel. You know how to find me. Paul, give him the spiel on you here, and we're gonna work clockwise down from you here and let everybody know where they can find more of this fucking gold tier content.
Gold tier content. So go find me on YouTube, Apex Mindset. Just do a search and it's there. If you jump on any of my videos, you'd have a link in the description to get on my email list. Jump on that as well. Just hired an assistant, so I'm happy about that. Guys are getting a lot of problems solved in consultations with me. There's a lot of stuff that I do with guys in consultations, not just, breaking down the logical stuff that we do here on these podcasts and videos and live streams, but getting into behavioral plans and emotional and mental reconditioning, so that your behavior actually shows up as better. That's what we do in consultations, but you're going to see a lot more stuff from me, hopefully next few months, now that I have some help on the administrative end, as far as getting a book out, getting the course out, getting things that people are demanding. So if you're on that email list, you'll have access to that stuff and, early registration and discounts and things like that. So thank you.
All right. I guess for Sterling and other John quickly, both of those guys got books. Sterling's is just coming out. Go check out their channels. Both of them are good. Sterling's new one about sexual dysfunction, I think it's the last day when it's on sale. And then the full releases after pre-sales are going to be $69. So I think I get everything there. I probably fucked up his pitch, but whatever.
Yeah, so just on YouTube, just look up Troy Francis. You'll find my channel. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell. Give me a like. Give me a comment. Give me a thumbs down. Whatever you want to do. Help to tickle that lovely algorithm. If you want to read my stuff about dating, game, the dating marketplace, etc., may or may not be relevant for the Cancun phone party. I might have to do an updated version of some of these texts when I've been there. Grab Renegade Dating Blueprint, which is my collection of 11 books about all of that good stuff. You'll see the link below any video on my channel. I've got a free email list as well, so do get on that. I send out an email most days, Monday to Friday, most weeks, a little article which is exclusive content. So do jump on board with that as well.
She belongs to the streets.
All right, where's the fuck? Oh, there it is.
No.
Harman.
Cool. So I'll be on my show tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. I have a few topic ideas. I'm not really gonna, you'll find out what they are probably by this afternoon. Other than that, I don't have much else going on. I'm presently doing work on the hardcover, re-editing book 1, not content-wise, just like sort of touching it up and like graphic and layout-wise. I'm rearranging things. So I'm working on that right now. Sam Bada assures me that he is made a lot of headway on the Audible version of the book. We were supposed to have it out by March, but it's looking like more like maybe mid-April at this point. So that's for book 4, which if you haven't picked up yet, it's available on Amazon. It is The Rational Male Religion. And no, it is not shitting on religion. And no, it is not a shitting on atheism either. So it's just it's a exploration. Let's just call it that. Let's see, I will have I've got a new post up, or it's coming up on the Rational Male. I'm looking forward to getting back to writing in a regular fashion, now that I am kind of done with the promotional side of things, for book 4. So that should be coming up as well. And again, I'm doing short videos now. Sunday is my long form show. Everything else is going to be short form videos, like 30 to 40 minute videos, or else like 1 minute videos. So that's what I got going on. And if you want to, I got a million people asking me for counseling these days, and I have you guys on a list right now. I'm going to be sending out responses to everybody who's asking me for counseling right now, to see if you would be interested in doing sort of a group counseling thing, or if you are just dead set on doing a one-on-one. So think about what your answer is going to be if you follow me in any fashion.
And then Johnny, let's see if you can get one more fire on your way out.
Well, real quick, there's a really important announcement that I got to make, not pertaining to any of this, but recently Rollo had a birthday, so make sure you guys tell Rollo happy birthday in the chat.
Thank you.
He's a big 5'3". He's looking great. Shout out to the godfather of the manosphere. How long have you been doing this shit now, man? 15,
Too long.
20 years?
Long. Yeah.
Happy birthday, dude.
Too long to deal with this shit.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Obviously here, April 29th, I'm launching the Masculine Empowerment Network. It is a 5-day enrollment. You're going to get access to a censorship-free forum where I will not lose my mind and go to Jesus in 5 years. We will still be talking about everything you need to know, everything you need in life. Money, muscles, game, field report, text message guides, fashion report, weight loss, weight gain, TRT, everything man-related. It's going to be on this forum. It's on a private website. Nobody can censor you. It is 1,000% a very, very, very needed thing in this space, especially now with tech censorship going through the roof. Facebook has become basically unusable, right? So the Masculine Empowerment Network is launching then. You also get access to 60 Zoom coaching sessions throughout the year. They're done in 20 session increments. So you're going to get 20 in this quarter, 20 next quarter, and 20 the third quarter. You get grandfathered in for the entire year. You get access to 200 hours of my previously recorded coaching content, which is also uncensored. In addition to that, you get Body Language Mastery, the course, 100% for free, and 1 year of text message coaching in a Telegram chat that only gets bigger and better throughout the year. If you want to come talk to me, Rolo, Charlie from cultivatecrypto.com, Mac the Day Gamer, Troy Francis, Red Pill Thor, Paul, all of us, go right here, masculineempowermentnetwork.com. Get on the waiting list. April 29th. It's going large. It's going live. 5 days only. And then on Cinco de Mayo, we start the first Zoom session. This first Zoom session starts at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That same day, we're back 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Each session is a minimum of 2 hours. So you get 4 hours of live interactive coaching with all your Red Pill guys here on the panel. Again, masculineempowermentnetwork.com. I'm going live on my channel at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In 13 minutes, we're going to talk about on Dude Party how to develop inner game, because I had so much people reach out to me and say my inner game is messed up. I need help with my inner game. So if you want to learn how to get help with your inner game, we're going to go live on my channel now in 12 minutes. Go to Modern Life Dating on YouTube, hit that subscribe, turn on the notification bell, set all settings to click the bell, make sure you get all notifications. That's it.
All right. On that note, I don't know what to end this thing off on, so I'm just going to